Alex was a soldier who had spent many long months fighting in Iraq, and when he finally returned home after 14 months of separation, everything was no longer the same. He stepped off the bus after the long journey, and the cold air of a small town in Texas made the loneliness even more intense. Each step he took felt like it was carved into his mind, as if everything had changed completely during the time he had been at war. He carried a heavy duffel bag over his shoulder and pulled along an old suitcase that was rusted, making him feel like his whole world was sinking into an inescapable silence. When Alex stopped at the end of the familiar street, where his old house stood at the edge of the neighborhood, a choking feeling overwhelmed his heart. Before him was the house he had lived in throughout his childhood, a place that once held countless memories of family and peaceful days. However, the house now no longer held any trace of the joyful past. Even the porch light wasn't on, as it had been on those previous nights. Everything was eerily quiet, as though no one had lived in the house for a long time. Alex's footsteps echoed down the old path, bringing up the sounds of a neighborhood that felt strangely unfamiliar to him. He felt like a stranger in the very land that was once his home. As he neared the back gate of the house, Alex couldn't help but feel a strange sense of unease in the air. Everything seemed unnaturally silent, as if all traces of life had disappeared completely. He walked around the back of the house toward the path that led to the grassy yard where he had once walked with his family. The weeds had grown thick, obscuring the path that he remembered had once been lush and green. The distant sound of birds chirping couldn't chase away the feeling of sadness and unfamiliarity that filled him. Everything seemed to have changed too much, but one thing remained the same. The emptiness was still there. Stepping into the house, Alex couldn't ignore the stark difference between the familiar atmosphere of the house he once knew and the present state of things. Every room was covered in dust. The upholstered chairs were no longer clean, and the picture frames on the walls were crooked. The kitchen, which used to be filled with delicious food, now had empty cupboards with no trace of the family meals that once brought the family together. Alex walked around, each step weighed down by the silence, his heart sinking as he realized that everything in the house had changed so much during his time away. When he entered the living room, the changes were even more apparent. The old carpet had faded, the furniture was not cleaned, and the place seemed abandoned. He looked around and wondered what had happened to his family during the months he had been gone. A sense of unease grew when he realized that his family had left without leaving any explanation, leaving only scattered belongings in a silence that filled every corner of the house. Alex's footsteps stopped when he noticed something strange. While everything seemed abandoned, a faint sound was coming from the backyard, a low, whimpering noise, not from a human, but from some living creature. He stood still for a moment, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. He quickly moved to the window and stepped outside, where the weak light of dusk faded, leaving only the dimming shadows. The air grew colder and heavier. There was something unsettling about it, as if some sign was trying to communicate with him. The whimpering sound grew clearer, and Alex knew that something bad was waiting for him. He moved to the far end of the yard, toward the old kennel where Max, the German shepherd he had raised since childhood, used to stay. It was where Max had remained during Alex's absence. But as he approached, the light from his flashlight illuminated a scene that made Alex shudder. Max lay in the corner of the yard, emaciated and weak. Most of Max's fur had fallen out, and his skin clung to his bones. One of his back legs was broken, and he couldn't move. The dog Alex had loved and cared for so many years now lay as a faint shadow of himself. A deep sense of pain and loss surged through Alex. He could hardly believe what he was witnessing. Reaching out to the rusted collar around Max's neck, Alex saw the name Max still barely visible beneath the grime. The name hit him like a sharp blow. This was Max, the dog he had raised from a pup, his loyal companion, the one he had promised to return for after his deployment. But now Max was lying there, abandoned, and barely hanging on to life. It seemed as though everything in his life was falling apart at that very moment. But in that moment, Alex made a decision he would never regret. He couldn't let Max die like this, and he would do everything he could to save the dog that had always waited for him to return. Discovering Max, the loyal dog, abandoned when Alex stepped into the backyard, the cold air of the dusk made everything feel more obscure and mysterious. He stood there panting, trying to adjust to the strange feeling that was invading his mind. Just as he had sensed when he first entered this neglected garden, something was wrong. Everything around him was in ruins, eerily silent to the point that it was unsettling. But this silence hid something waiting to pounce. Alex's eyes suddenly caught a shadowy figure in the dark. Who was it? What was it? He took a deep breath, tried to calm himself, and then continued walking toward the end of the yard, where old memories of taking Max out to play still lingered. In the dim darkness, the light from his flashlight illuminated the dry patches of earth and the overgrown weeds. Max was certainly there in the old kennel that had long been abandoned. Each step Alex took pulled him back to the past, a time when Max was his most loyal companion, always following him on walks, always waiting for him to return. But as he neared the kennel, what awaited him was not a familiar sight, but a terrifying one. Max was lying there completely motionless. Alex's heart tightened as he saw his dog's body, so emaciated that he could barely recognize it. Max's fur had nearly all fallen out, and his skin was stretched tight over his bones. His back leg was broken, and he couldn't move. The dog Alex had promised to come back for now lay in such a terrible state that it was almost unbelievable. Alex dropped to his knees, his hand trembling as he shone the flashlight on Max's face. The dog's eyes were no longer bright as they had once been. Instead, they were dull, unfocused. For a moment, Alex felt as if his heart had stopped. Without thinking, he knelt closer to Max, gently stroking the dog's back. But there was no reaction. Only the faint sound of Max's labored breathing remained, as if he was trying to call out to him. The injuries on Max's body caused Alex's heart to tighten. It felt as though this pain was not just the dog's, but his own. It had been so long since he had left, and no one had taken care of Max. Who would care for his loyal dog when he was not there? But what made Alex even more desperate was not just the sight of Max's emaciated body, but the fact that the dog had no strength left. He couldn't move. Max's back leg was broken, and Alex couldn't help but think of the pain Max must have endured during the time he was away. Max had been abandoned, left alone with no one to care for him, no one to look after him. Yet despite it all, the dog was still alive, still waiting for Alex to come back. Alex felt his heart break. He couldn't believe what was happening in front of his eyes. How many times had he thought about this day, about reuniting with Max, and now he was seeing his dog lying there, exhausted and almost lifeless. But no, he couldn't let Max die like this. Max was the only friend he had, a part of his life that he never wanted to leave behind. Max, Max, no, you can't die like this. Alex shouted in anguish, his eyes blurring with tears. He knelt beside his dog, gently stroking its head, feeling the faint breath, the shallow heartbeat that seemed to beat weakly in Max's body. In that moment, Alex felt a deep, overwhelming fear. He was terrified that if he didn't do something immediately, Max would never have the chance to rise again, never be able to run back to him like the old days. Alex quickly stood up, looking around for a way to save Max. Everything around him was dark and murky, but he knew he couldn't give up. He had to save Max. He had to do something to rescue his dog. He hurriedly took his phone out of his pocket, searching for the number of a veterinary clinic, his hands trembling as he dialed the digits. This time, he couldn't hesitate, couldn't wait. "Hello, I need help immediately. My dog is seriously injured. He's very weak. Please help me," Alex nearly screamed into the phone. He could feel the fever of desperation creeping through his body. He couldn't let Max die like this. Not like this. After hanging up the phone, Alex immediately lifted Max, despite his body being so light that he could feel every bone of Max's. He ran as fast as he could toward the veterinary clinic. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead, and the cold air around him made him feel as if he were racing against time. He couldn't let Max go. He had promised Max he would return, and he couldn't let that promise be broken. When they arrived at the veterinary clinic, the doctor quickly took Max in, and Alex stood outside the emergency room, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know if Max would survive, but he knew he had done everything he could to save the only friend he had left in the world. Max fights for his life. With each hurried step in the dark, Alex felt his heart beat erratically. The streets were quiet, desolate, with only the flickering streetlights and the sound of the cold wind rustling through the trees. He held Max tightly in his arms, the dog's frail body devoid of life, reduced to nothing but bones under the dry, sagging skin. Max's eyes no longer had any light. They were dull and lifeless. Max was nearly dead. But no, Alex couldn't accept that. He couldn't let Max slip away like this, after the dog had waited for him all this time, suffering, abandoned. The doors to the veterinary clinic opened before him, and a small flicker of hope reignited in Alex's heart. Carrying Max inside, he was enveloped by an overwhelming coldness. Despair and fear gripped his mind. Would Max have a chance to live? Could he save him? The doctors rushed to take Max in. A female doctor, with a determined yet cold gaze, motioned for Alex to sit in a corner. He sat, his hand gripping his backpack, unable to take his eyes off Max. His dog lay on the cold operating table, surrounded by the medical team preparing for surgery. Instinct told Alex that this might be the last time he would see Max. A shiver ran down his spine at the thought. As the doctors worked, Alex couldn't stop thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The memories of Max, the dog he had loved for so many years, flooded his mind. He remembered their happy, carefree runs, their afternoons strolling around the yard, and the sleepless nights when he'd worry about his family's safety. Max was always there, always ready to protect him from any danger. But now Max lay there, weak, with no strength left, and Alex didn't know what to do. When the female doctor came out of the operating room, her face looked tense. Alex stood up immediately, his eyes full of panic. She looked at him for a moment, then sighed, lowering her voice. "You can visit Max for a bit," the doctor said, "but his condition is critical. We're doing everything we can, but there are no guarantees." Alex felt like the ground beneath him was crumbling. No guarantees? What did that mean? Could Max die at any moment? He stood still for a moment, his mind spinning with unanswerable questions. Finally, he nodded and stepped into the room where Max lay. Max was still lying on the operating table, his body wrapped in blankets, only his tired, weak face exposed. The soft hospital lights illuminated his body, making his injuries even more apparent. Alex's heart clenched. He stepped closer and sat beside Max, reaching out to stroke his head. Max weakly lifted his head, his eyes cloudy but still holding a spark of recognition, as if the dog understood that his best friend had returned. "Max, I'm not leaving you," Alex whispered, his voice breaking. "You've waited for me so long, and now it's time for me to bring you home." Tears fell from Alex's face, tears he couldn't hold back. They weren't tears of regret, not the pain from the long time apart, but tears of a last desperate hope. Hope that Max would overcome this challenge. Hope that his dog wouldn't leave him. Not now, not after he had made the decision to return and save him. The doctor returned, taking one last look at Max before speaking again. "We've done everything we can, but we'll need to wait a little longer to see if he can wake up." Time seemed to stand still. In the quiet room, only Max's steady breathing and the soft beeping of the machines could be heard as they measured his heart rate. Alex dared not take his eyes off his dog, unwilling to leave him alone for even a second. He knew that if Max didn't survive, There would be nothing left for him to hold on to. Max was all that was left after a life full of pain and loss. When the doctor stepped out, Alex couldn't sit still. He stood up, pacing around the room, his hands clenched tight, a feeling of helplessness spreading through his body. He couldn't do anything but wait. The passage of time seemed unbearably slow. Each minute, each second felt like an eternity. He couldn't even bear to think about what would happen if he lost Max. He couldn't accept it. Suddenly, Max's breathing grew more labored. Alex rushed back to his side, his heart tightening when he saw Max's body twitch slightly, then struggle for breath. A strange wave of relief swept through him, and in that moment, he felt Max's will to live. The dog, despite being so weak, was fighting to hold on. Max wasn't giving up, and neither was Alex. They would both fight until there was no hope left. For the first time in days, Alex felt a small glimmer of light pierce through the darkness. Max was still alive, and he knew that no matter what, he would never let his dog suffer again. Max would live, and Alex would fight with him to the very end. Max fights for his life, the recovery journey. When the doctor finally informed Alex that Max had survived the critical phase, Alex felt as if a heavy stone had been lifted from his heart. However, he knew this was only the beginning of a long journey. Max was still weak, still required constant care and patience, and more than anything, Alex had to be ready for a new battle, one between life and death, a battle they both had to face together. Max was brought back home in a fragile state, an IV drip still attached to his leg. He couldn't stand on his own and could only lie motionless on the bed that had been carefully prepared for him. But what worried Alex the most was Max's silence. His dog no longer growled or jumped up when he heard a strange noise. He just lay there, staring blankly, his emaciated body devoid of any energy. Alex couldn't help but think back to what he had gone through. How many long nights he had spent in the trenches, his heart filled with the confusion, remembering Max, remembering the joyful moments with his dog. Now, when he returned, the pug who had once been his loyal companion lay there like a shadow, weak and wasted, making his heart ache endlessly. He couldn't abandon Max again, couldn't leave him alone in the desolation. Every morning, Alex would prepare a meal for Max, patiently grinding the meat, mixing in vegetables, feeding him small spoonfuls. During the early days, the dog couldn't even swallow the food on his own. Alex had to carefully place each bite into Max's mouth, his hands trembling from the fear. Every time Max lifted his head, though weakly, Alex saw a tiny spark of hope. This dog wasn't giving up, and neither would he. Gradually, Max began to show small signs of improvement. Even though he still had to receive fluids and lay on the bed, Max's eyes were no longer cloudy like before. He began to look at Alex with a sense of awareness, as if the dog understood he was no longer alone. One morning, as Alex prepared breakfast for Max, he saw the dog struggle to turn over. Despite the difficulty, Max somehow managed to lift himself, his weak legs unable to fully support him. But it was a sign that could not be ignored. Max was fighting. In the days that followed, Alex continued to do everything he could to help Max recover. He never took his eyes off his dog, often waking in the middle of the night to check on Max's breathing and condition. Those long nights, Alex sat by his dog, gently stroking him, speaking comforting words even though he wasn't sure Max could understand. But deep down, Alex knew that his presence was the greatest encouragement for Max. Neither of them could give up. A week passed and Max gradually regained strength. Each day he ate a little more, though still struggling, but he didn't give up. Alex remained persistent with the recovery methods, including gentle physical therapy to help Max move the muscles that had atrophied. Every time Max managed to stand and take a step, Alex felt the strength that his dog was fighting to reclaim. He looked at Max as if he were seeing himself in the dog, someone who had endured deep wounds in his heart, but never gave up. The following day, while Alex was conducting a light physical therapy session with Max, something unexpected happened. Max stood up, his legs still shaky, but he was able to move one step at a time. Alex felt as if the world suddenly brightened. Max was walking, albeit weakly, but it was an unexpected victory. Alex couldn't hold back his tears when he saw Max lightly bite his hand, as if offering a deep thank you. "I won't give up, Max. I will never abandon you," Alex whispered, his hand clutching Max's thick fur, feeling the dog's breath. In that moment, they seemed to merge together, sharing a friendship that nothing could break. But that was not the end. Although Max had shown signs of recovery, the journey was still long. They both had to face severe challenges. In the days that followed, when Max started to walk again, his steps were still unsteady and his legs still trembled. Each time he fell, Max had to fight to stand up again. Alex couldn't help but sigh every time he saw Max struggling, but he never gave up. He knew that once Max had started, nothing could stop him. A month later, Max was able to walk normally again, although his legs were still weak. The two of them went for walks in the yard, just like the old days when everything was simple and joyful. The surroundings no longer felt as gloomy as before. The sunlight shone down on the ground, and Max ran around, chasing leaves blown by the wind, as if everything had returned to normal. Throughout this journey, Max not only recovered physically, but also helped Alex heal emotionally. They had overcome the difficulties together, the dark days, and now they were no longer just a soldier and a dog. They were warriors, inseparable friends. Life had triumphed over death, and a friendship that nothing could break had been reignited. Max saves a child from a wild dog. On a warm afternoon, Alex and Max decided to take a walk in the park near their home, a routine they had begun again since Max started to recover. Alex could feel each step Max took, now more steady, yet still slightly laborious. The dog's walk, though light, was full of life, as if both of them were trying to reclaim something lost during the painful days of Max's illness. Despite still being weak, Max was slowly finding joy in each step he took. The park that day wasn't crowded. Only a few families were strolling, children playing under the shade of the trees, their laughter echoing through the air. Max seemed to want to immerse himself in this peaceful atmosphere, running around Alex, occasionally stopping to sniff the freshly grown grass or glance at the other dogs playing nearby. What seemed like a peaceful, carefree scene would soon turn into a challenge neither Alex nor Max could have anticipated. Suddenly, from a distance, a low growl echoed. Alex looked and saw a large, wild dog charging from the other side of the park. The dog appeared abandoned, wild, and aggressive, its eyes glowing with anger and fear. It was running at full speed, suddenly and without purpose, heading straight for a little girl playing alone near the playground. The girl stood there, innocent, unaware of the danger approaching her. "Max, come here!" Alex shouted, but his call couldn't stop the wild dog from racing toward the girl. Max turned to look at Alex, its eyes seemingly understanding the danger in that instant. Without warning, Max sprinted toward the wild dog, as if its protective instincts had awakened. A surge of emotions exploded inside Alex. Panic, fear, and the worry that Max might not be able to handle the dangerous dog. The wild dog seemed unaware of Max's presence. It continued charging toward the girl, undeterred by Alex's calls or attempts to intervene. Alex didn't have time to react before Max shot forward like an arrow, lunging at the wild dog with unexpected strength. Although Max's body was still weak and its legs not fully recovered, it didn't hesitate, didn't stop. The protective instinct led it, just as it had always done in the past, when Max would protect Alex from any harm. The sound of growling filled the air, and both Alex and the onlookers couldn't take their eyes off the scene. Max and the wild dog collided, a fierce battle breaking out between the two animals. Max was no longer the weak dog that Alex had carried into the vet a week ago. It fought with all the strength left in its body, biting into the wild dog's neck and holding on, as if it would protect the little girl at all costs. Meanwhile, the girl stood there, her eyes wide with fear, not knowing what to do. The scene unfolded too quickly and too powerfully for her to react. She stood frozen, watching Max and the wild dog in a state of panic. Alex ran toward them, his heart pounding in his chest. Each step felt heavier, longer. Max continued fighting, but the wild dog wasn't backing down. It used all its power to bite into Max's neck, causing Alex's dog to cry out in pain. But Max didn't give up, didn't retreat. It tightened its grip on the wild dog, pulling it away from the girl, making sure the vicious animal couldn't get any closer. In a moment, a group of people from the other side of the park rushed over, pulling the wild dog away from Max and moving it to a safe area. Max lay there, breathing heavily, its body bloodied, but it didn't release the wild dog. Alex ran to Max's side, kneeling down, his eyes clouded with worry. He didn't know how badly Max had been hurt and couldn't bring himself to think of what might happen if Max couldn't continue to survive. "Max, it's okay. You did great. You saved the girl," Alex whispered through tears, gently stroking Max's matted fur. Even though Max was incredibly weak, in that moment, it looked at Alex with eyes full of gratitude, as if it understood that its mission had been accomplished. It had protected the girl, and now it could rest. Max tiredly laid down, breathing heavily but not resisting. As people around them rushed to help the girl and take her back to her family, Alex quickly picked up Max. Blood dripped from Max's body, and Alex couldn't control his anxiety. He rushed toward the veterinary clinic, unwilling to leave Max alone for even a moment. By now, Max had saved a life, but Alex couldn't allow him to suffer any longer. The story of loyalty spreads. The event at the park that day became an unforgettable moment in the lives of Alex and Max. Since Max saved the little girl from the wild dog, their story quickly spread through the media. However, even Alex couldn't have imagined the incredible impact their story would have, as just a brief moment in their lives changed everything. Right after the incident, a passerby filmed the battle between Max and the wild dog and uploaded it online. Within hours, the video was shared millions of times, and the story of Max the dog, who saved a little girl from danger, became the hot topic on news outlets and social media. To Alex's surprise, it wasn't just pet communities who were moved, but people from all walks of life. Veterans, veterinarians, strangers, and acquaintances were deeply touched by Max's loyalty and courage. Alex never imagined that Max's actions would have such a powerful impact. The shares, the photos of Max, and the emotional stories from the community overwhelmed him. Every time he opened his phone, there were thousands of comments congratulating and thanking Max for his heroic act. But amidst all the excitement, there was one message that made him shudder and would forever change his life. A message from a stranger, a veteran, arrived for Alex. He read the message over and over, unable to believe what he was seeing. "I was planning to end my life tonight. But when I saw Max's story, I decided to change my mind. Max saved me more than you think. Thank you, and Max so much." That message left Alex in shock. He couldn't believe that Max's story, filled with loyalty and sacrifice, could save someone's life. In that moment, all of Alex's emotions overflowed. He felt a miraculous connection between his dog and the people they had never met. People had found hope and strength through an act that was simple yet profoundly meaningful. Soon after, Alex decided to share his and Max's story on social media. He posted a picture of Max lying beside him, both of them gazing out the window, as if looking toward a brighter future. Their story quickly gained attention from reporters and pet organizations, and before long, Max had become a symbol of loyalty and courage. Interviews and filming sessions for popular television shows began to pour in. Alex was invited to share his and Max's story on several major news networks. He didn't just talk about the special bond between him and Max, but also shared the hardships he had endured during his military service and how Max had made his life more meaningful. His heartfelt and moving words touched millions of people around the world. The story of Max didn't stop there. It was nominated for a national award, where Max was named Hero Dog of the Year. Yes, by this time, Alex was no longer just a former soldier. He had become a hero, not because of what he had done, but because of Max's actions, who had saved not just a little girl, but many others with his loyalty and courage. On the night of the award ceremony, both Alex and Max were invited to New York for the Hero Dog Awards. This was a major event where dogs were honored for their heroic acts. Alex and Max stepped onto the stage where the bright lights shone on them. In that moment, all the struggles, pain, and hope came flooding back to Alex. He couldn't contain his emotions, standing there with Max beside him, accepting the recognition that his dog so rightfully deserved. Max didn't just save the little girl, he saved me. He saved everything I had left, and he deserves all the love and gratitude we can give him, Alex said, his voice cracking with emotion. These words made the entire auditorium erupt in applause. Alex turned to look at Max, and in his eyes, the gratitude and love he felt for his loyal dog seemed beyond words. When the ceremony ended, Max was honored with the prestigious title of Hero Dog of the Year. The video of this moment quickly spread across media platforms, touching millions of people and sending a powerful message about love, loyalty, and sacrifice. Stories of Max, his heroic actions, and the image of loyal four-legged friends in our lives were illuminated for the world to see. However, for Alex, that moment was not the end. It was only the beginning of a new journey. He and Max had been through so much together, and now they were living symbols of perseverance, resilience, and an unbreakable bond of friendship. Strangers around the world had found hope in their story, and Alex felt deeply grateful that Max, his dog, had changed his life and the lives of so many others. Recognition and deep friendship. After Max saved the little girl from the wild Alex and Max's story quickly spread far and wide, not just within the pet-loving community, but also throughout society. People were talking about Max's loyalty, bravery, and unwavering protective instincts. But for Alex, even though the stories and praise moved him deeply, he still felt something was missing in his life. Everything had changed so quickly, and he hadn't yet adjusted to all the attention that Max was receiving. One day, while Alex was sitting alone in the living room, receiving a barrage of calls from reporters and media outlets, a message from a stranger made him stop everything. He read the message over and over, unable to believe what he was seeing. "I'm a veteran. I was planning to end my life tonight, but after I saw Max's story, I decided to change my mind. Max saved me more than you know. Thank you, and thank Max for giving me a reason to live." The emotions of confusion, sorrow, and surprise overwhelmed Alex. He felt like his heart had shattered into a million pieces. In that moment, Max was no longer just a loyal companion. He had become a beacon of light, a symbol of hope for those drowning in the darkness of life. Everything Max had done, from saving the little girl in the park to saving a soldier who had lost all hope, seemed to carry a deeper meaning than Alex could have ever imagined. Their story had become a symbol, not just of loyalty, but of the powerful strength that friendship can bring. It was an invisible connection between two souls, a man and a dog, not just through acts of heroism, but through the profound understanding they had of each other. And it wasn't just pet lovers or veterans who were moved, but even strangers began to empathize with their story. Alex could not contain his emotions every time he saw thank you messages and expressions of gratitude from strangers. Max's story had transcended all boundaries, becoming an inspiration to those searching for life, for those battling emotional pain. As each day passed, Alex felt a growing sense of responsibility, but also inspiration. He knew that not just he, but both he and Max had changed so many lives. When Max was invited to the Hero Dog of the Year awards ceremony, Alex felt incredibly nervous. He knew that this event wasn't just about a prize. It was a grand recognition for Max, and also a milestone in the lives of both him and the dog he loved. At that moment, Alex realized that everything he had gone through, from his life in the military to taking care of Max had led them to this moment, where he and Max would stand under the spotlight, facing the world together. On the night of the ceremony, the stage was bathed in bright lights, and the entire auditorium erupted in applause as Max and Alex stepped up. Max walked more steadily than ever before, though his legs were still weak, his eyes shining brightly with pride. Alex looked at Max, unable to stop smiling, but inside he felt an emotion that was hard to describe. They had fought together through so much, not only facing external challenges, but also confronting the ghosts in their souls. They had found each other, and now they weren't just a soldier and a dog, they were heroes, symbols of loyalty and an unbreakable friendship. When Max received the award, all eyes were on him. Alex stood there feeling the warmth of the love and admiration people had for Max. But in that sacred moment, Alex couldn't help but think about everything that had happened, about the miraculous change that Max had brought to his life. Max was not just a doing, he had become a friend, a teacher, and a powerful source of inspiration. Max didn't just save the little girl. Max saved me. He saved everything I had left. And he deserves all the love and gratitude we can give him, Alex said, his voice breaking with emotion. These words made the whole room burst into applause. Alex turned to look at Max, and in his eyes, the gratitude and love for his loyal dog seemed beyond words. When the ceremony ended, Max had received the highest honor, the Hero Dog of the Year award. The video of this moment quickly spread across media outlets, touching millions of people and sending a powerful message about love, loyalty, and sacrifice. Stories of Max, of his heroic actions, illuminated the image of loyal, four-legged friends in our lives. However, for Alex, that moment was not the end. It was just the beginning of a new journey. He and Max had been through so much, and now they were living symbols of perseverance, resilience, and an inseparable bond of friendship. Strangers across the world had found hope through their story, and Alex felt deep gratitude that Max, his dog, had changed his life and the lives of so many others. After receiving recognition and accolades, Max and Alex returned home in a completely different state than before. Their home was no longer a place of emptiness and coldness. Now it was filled with the memories of their miraculous journey. Each step Max took was stronger, even though his legs were still weak, but nothing could stop the resilience that the mice had shown throughout the long, difficult time. However, an unexpected event would change their lives forever. That night, as the last light of day faded and a tranquil atmosphere enveloped the house, Alex sat in the living room looking toward Max. He saw his dog lying on the bed, his eyes bright with hope, as if he always believed that life would never be overcome by darkness. But in that moment, a sudden knock on the door echoed through the quiet house. Alex quickly stood up and rushed to the door. What he saw shocked him. A stranger stood in front of the door, his face filled with urgency and worry. He looked at Alex with eyes full of anxiety, unable to hide his fear. "Sorry, I can't stay silent any longer," the man said, his voice tense. "Your dog, Max, right? He saved the little girl in the park, didn't he?" Alex was a bit surprised by the sudden question. "Yes, he saved the girl from the wild dog, but how do you—" The man stepped in without waiting for Alex to invite him. "I'm a friend of the little girl's family. I have to tell you something. That dog, Max, didn't just save one life. He saved many lives over a long period." Alex felt a vague sense of worry inside. What are you talking about? I don't understand. The man furrowed his brow and sat down as if he had no choice but to tell the truth. "I know this will be hard to believe, but Max didn't just save the girl. He also saved her family from another attack. Another wild dog had been forced to attack the family, but Max, with all his courage, fought to protect them. He even helped in a dangerous confrontation with a group of criminals. Max is part of the lives of so many people we can't even count." The man's words left Alex frozen in place, his hands trembling. "Max, He did all that? Alex's voice caught in his throat, struggling to believe what he had just heard. He's not just a Guimiamamani. The man looked deep into Alex's eyes, his gaze full of respect. Max is a hero. Not only did he save the girl, but many others too. He's a hero who never sought recognition. But now I think it's time for him to be known as a real hero. The world needs to know about Max. As the man left, a strange feeling overcame Alex. He didn't know what to do with this information. Max, his dog, had saved not just one life, but had been involved in dangerous and heroic actions that Alex hadn't known about. He felt a mixture of pride and humility. Max was not just the dog that saved a girl in the park. He was part of a silent battle, an unsung warrior protecting the innocent. The next day, Alex decided to share this story with the public. He wrote a long post on his social media, recounting everything Max had done, from saving the girl in the park to facing danger in harrowing situations. Alex didn't just want Max to be recognized. He also wanted the world to know that a dog could do incredible things, and that the bond between humans and animals could transcend all limits. When the post was shared, the reaction from the community was unimaginable. Max's story quickly became a hot topic across media platforms, with people sharing their amazement and admiration for Max's bravery. Within hours, Alex's post received thousands of likes and comments. Once again, Max's story reached new heights, where real warriors don't need battlefields. They fight in the quiet moments of life. The following day, Alex received an invitation from a popular TV show. He and Max were invited for a live interview where they would tell the heroic journey of Max. At the studio, not only were there reporters, but also many well-known figures from the pet community and animal welfare organizations. They all wanted to meet Max, and they all wanted to hear the story of Alex and Max. As Alex stood in front of the camera, holding Max tightly by his side, he felt a deep, indescribable sense of pride. Max was standing beside him, no longer the weak dog of earlier days, but a symbol of loyalty, courage, and sacrifice. Alex began to tell the story of Max, of their friendship, and everything this dog had done to make his life meaningful. Every word Alex spoke carried a special power, as if Max himself was delivering a message of love and sacrifice. The story of Max and Alex became a legendary tale of loyalty and friendship, one that would be shared for years to come in the hearts of those who witnessed the incredible strength of a dog, an unsung hero who was quiet but powerful. From that day on, their lives would never be the same, but they never sought anything more than to bring positive change to the world, a change that Max had begun and Alex would continue. An unforgettable moment, that day was one that both Alex and Max would never forget, and it marked a crucial turning point in their lives. Before, their life had been simple and peaceful, but everything changed when Max saved a little girl from the wild dog, and their story quickly became a global phenomenon. These events not only changed their lives, but also made them realize the magical power of friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice. After returning from the Hero Dog of the Year or Meander award ceremony in New York, where Max was honored, both Alex and Max seemed to have entered an entirely different world. Max was no longer just an ordinary dog. He had become a symbol, a hero in the eyes of everyone. Yet despite all of this, Alex felt a strange emptiness in his heart. He couldn't deny that life had changed, but he wasn't sure whether these changes had truly brought him a sense of complete happiness. One night, as Alex sat alone in the living room, looking at Max lying peacefully on the bed, he felt an invisible worry consume him. The house had become famous, not only in their neighborhood but around the world. But would the friendship between him and Max change? Could they continue to live peacefully as before? These thoughts circled in his mind, preventing him from falling asleep. Meanwhile, Max remained the same. He didn't know anything about the fame, the spotlight, or the recognition he had received. He was simply the loyal dog that Alex loved. But even Max couldn't have imagined that the events that had happened would continue to push their lives into a new high-stakes adventure. On a stormy night, as everything around them fell into silence, there was a sudden knock at the door. Alex stood up and opened the door without thinking. When he opened it, he saw a stranger, his face filled with worry. The man's eyes looked into Alex's as if he was seeking help. "Sorry, I don't know who else to turn to," the man said, his voice trembling. "You're Alex, right? Max's owner?" Alex furrowed his brow, sensing something was off. "Yes, I'm Alex. But who are you and why are you here at this hour?" The man looked around as if checking to see if anyone was watching. "I need to tell you something very important," he said in a low voice. "Your dog, Max, he didn't just save the girl in the park. Max has been involved in something else that you don't know about. Something extremely dangerous. The people who are looking for Max are not ordinary people. They're a criminal organization." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "What? What are you talking about?" he asked, unable to believe his ears. "Max is just an ordinary dog. He only saved the girl." The man took a deep breath, trying to control the panic in his voice. "I don't know everything, but I've heard some things. Max didn't just save the girl. Over the past few weeks, this dog has unknowingly interfered with a crime the organization was carrying out. They were trying to kidnap some important people, and Max uncovered them. I believe they're trying to find Max because he has ruined their plans." Every word the man spoke was like a shock to Alex. He couldn't comprehend what was happening. Max, the dog he loved, had gotten tangled in such a dangerous web. How could his dog be involved with criminals like this? "Are you serious?" Alex asked, his voice dropping, filled with doubt. "Yeah, I'm serious," the man replied, looking at Alex with eyes full of worry. "I can't stay here any longer. They'll be here soon. If you love your you need to leave right now." Alex felt the air around him freeze. He looked into Max's eyes, the dog lying quietly on the bed, unaware of the danger approaching. Alex couldn't let Max fall into the wrong hands. He couldn't let anyone harm his dog. He quickly packed a few things and then, with Max by his side, rushed out of the house. As soon as he stepped outside, Alex felt the shift in the atmosphere. The sense of danger seemed to suddenly flood the space around him. He couldn't be sure, but one thing was clear. They were no longer safe. The people searching for Max were not ones to forgive easily, and Alex knew he had to quickly figure out how to protect Max from them.